Do you, among all of us, do you find yourself wondering who and what and how we are to be at this time in history? Raise your hand if you ask yourself those questions. Gosh, I do. We're going to learn what the trees have to teach us today about that. Some weeks ago, with my daughter Allie, I went to the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Carolina Friends School, the Quaker school in Durham. And on Sunday morning, there was an interview with Dr. Peter Klopfer and his wife Martha, who started the school. Peter has 2 PhDs and was chair of the Department of Zoology for many years, responsible for starting that wonderful lemur center. And Martha holds the world's record for the fastest woman who runs over the age of 90. Yeah. And the other person was Don Wells, who after Peter kind of got the school established, chose the books, helped design the courses, Don, I think, was the second principal. These 3 people were visionaries, and they also had some struggles in the beginning days of starting this school. When they started the school, all of the schools in Durham and Orange County, and probably Chatham too, were segregated. And everybody thought that the Carolina Friends School should be a segregated school. And Peter and Martha disagreed. They believed that welcoming racial and class diversity into the school would enhance everyone's education. So the Klopfers donated the land adjoining, they had a lot of land, and they donated a big piece of land that adjoined their property for the grounds of the school. And the school was accessed by driving down the Klopfers' personal driveway and then backing off to get to the school. Others in the broader community disagreed about the value of integration. The sheriff's car had all of the sheriff's cars had a bumper sticker on the back that said something like SLKB, and it stood for Support Local Klan Business. So they weren't going to get any health or protection from the law in the area. The Klopfers had threats on their lives and scary drivers coming up their driveway and doing and saying scary things. And there was a bomb in the lower school. It wasn't detonated, but there was a bomb there. And finally, that caught the attention of the closest FBI over in Greensboro. So they then got a little help. When Don was also a Quaker, he became principal, and the North Carolina Board of Education came and said that the textbooks that the school was using were not okay, and they had to use the textbooks that were chosen by the North Carolina Board of Education. Do you think they ever went to any of the private evangelical schools and said that? I don't know, but I doubt it. And that the teachers had to be certified in the same way that the North Carolina board requires. Well, Don strongly disagreed. He said this was a private school, not a public school, and for goodness sakes, the program had a double PhD as its founder and structure of the courses and choosing the textbooks. And the staff and family met the kind of requirements that they were looking for in teachers. So what they do? Quakers, like we in Unity, believe that we all have that divine inside. And they've been peacefully standing up for justice for decades. Besides moving forward to integrate the school, Peter personally went into a segregated cafe in Durham with an African-American friend of his who agreed to do this thing. And the police came in and said to the African-American man, "You've got to get out right now." And said to Peter, "And we're not going to make a big deal with you. You're okay. You can stay." And Peter said, "No, I want you to make a big deal of this. Please arrest me." And stuck out his hands to be handcuffed. And the civil rights law had already been passed. So Peter took, and it was a little foggy about if it was both or one, but he took either the right to integrate the school or to bring a person of color into the restaurant all the way up the court system to the Supreme Court and prevailed. Don said, "I like a good fight." And he took his case about the choice of textbooks and certifications of the teachers' qualifications to court as well. And he also prevailed. After their talks, there was a time for questions and answers. And I was a nanosecond behind the first woman who raised her hand, and that was just fine because she asked the question that I would have asked. And that was, what advice do you have for us in these times? Peter's and Don's and Martha's response were two things. One, they said, "Go back to your roots. We have to go back to our Quaker roots, back to our Quaker foundation." Look at this. Like the trees, grounded in the divine. That's their source. And we in Unity, we have our source going into our communication with the divine and our values and our principles. Einstein said that we will not solve the problems of the world from the level of the thinking that the problem was created. That kind of thinking and those emotions only tie us to the problem when we try to do it in the third realm, in the material realm. And we can't fix things if we try to do it on that realm. First, we have to go to the ground of the divine. We have to go to that fifth dimension to ground ourselves through prayer and meditation in that dimension. And look at the roots of all the trees. They're all connected with one another, all connected. So the trees purposefully and intentionally connect up with each other. We must remember that we are all one. Different, granted, at different stages of spiritual evolution, but that we all have that divine at our core. And we need to speak to other people as if from that place to that place in them. We've got to hold that. They have this amazing, complex way, the trees do, of communicating with one another. Information comes down from the trees through the root system, helped by these little fungi too, and connect with the other root systems that connect with the other root systems. And these fungi help them transmit many miles. Get this, in 1 teaspoon of forest soil, there are many miles of these hi-fi fungi that can network an entire forest. Amazing. Imagine that. I like to think of them like angels in the divine realm, whispering to all of us. Trees do all, and actually Maria came in this morning and told us about something she saw on YouTube, that somebody grounds themselves in love, stands beside a tree, and invites the tree branch to come down and touch them. And it does. So you might want to go out and try that afterwards. Trees do all kinds of things to protect one another and the forest. They're very social beings. They pump sugar and water to ailing trees to help them stay alive. They help their neighboring trees in times of need. And sometimes they share food even with their competitors. Why? Because when alone, their survival and the survival of the whole forest is threatened. Together, they create an ecosystem that moderates extremes of heat and cold, store supplies of water, and create humidity when they need to, so that they can all live to be very old trees in an environment of maintaining each other. This suggests a hopefulness in their own ways. We're going to store the sugar, we're going to store the water, we're going to help each other in bad times, and we're going to survive. Because the community, the forest community, has to stay intact no matter what. If not, many would die. Fatalities would mean gaps in the forest canopy, making the forest vulnerable to storms getting through and destroying more trees, or the summer heat reaching the floor of the forest and drying it out. And I learned this. Do you know why trees are round? I mean, we just take that for granted. I mean, why aren't they like what is that called, a trapezoid like this, whatever it is? Why aren't they like that? Do you know why? Because when they grow up to where they can reach the sunlight that they need for photosynthesis, they close their diameter so that the trees next to them also have room and space to reach the light. Therefore, every tree is valuable to the community. Sick trees are nourished until they recover, and next time, the supporting trees may be the one in need. What can we learn from this? We can go back to the ground of our unity principles and remember that we're all divine and every one of us is important, even if it sometimes doesn't feel that way. Community is so important in this time. Thank God for this community. Thank God. When we isolate ourselves individually, like the trees, we're more affected by outside events. We don't have other people to help us share the story or share the fear. And it's very stressful to hold all that alone. Also, we have tools in the ground of our unity theology that help us release fear and affirm that all is divine order and that we are the protection of God. They remind us that it's affirmative prayer. The trees remind us that it's important to care for one another, to care for the ailing and the vulnerable, and to graciously and gratefully receive it when it's our turn. We avoid or release despair and hopelessness at all times. They express their own version, the trees do, as they store up the sugars and the water. They say, okay, we know we're going to survive hard times. Martin Luther and the trees express, so we, like them, release despair and hopelessness. The trees, and Martin Luther King Jr. said, we cannot capitulate to finite disappointments. We must confront these finite disappointments with infinite hope. We stand in courage through our groundedness in the divine. Presidential historian John Meacham says that fear is a good starter for demagogues, and it's not a good finisher. It is hard, he says, to keep a lot of people afraid for a really long time. To fight fear, we need courage, he goes on to say. And courage is one of the most contagious things you can imagine. That was his quote. And I see a whole room full of courageous people. I really do. Speaking of imagine, we're also reminded in this ground to use our power of imagination. We remember that divine love inside us and all around outside us. That love is a stronger power than anything on earth. And why help our competitors? Because it sets a good tone, it sets a good energy, and it adds to the collective consciousness. We must have a willingness to leap forward into a new way of thinking, to avoid that duality thinking of us versus them. I was touched by a segment of Lawrence O'Donnell this last week, and I want to play that, share that with you. It's very short, just a little over a minute.
And no, as a lifetime Celtics fan, I don't mean the
Can
part
you
where
start
the
it
New York
back
Knicks
at
won
the
semifinals
128?
for the first
Thank you.
time
Thanks. We've had to work so hard, everybody has on this.
Saturday night in Madison Square Garden, something beautiful happened. And no, as a lifetime Celtics fan, I don't mean the part where the New York Knicks won the semifinals for the first time in 25 years, beating the Celtics. It's what happened after that. It was another night of Jalen versus Jalen, the Celtics star Jaylen Brown versus Knicks star Jalen Brunson. They battled each other all night. Two of the greatest basketball players Madison Square Garden has ever seen. Fierce competitors. One wins, one loses. And at the end of the game, with the Celtics' dream of winning the championship 2 years in a row ruined by the Knicks earning their first trip to the Eastern Conference Finals since 2000, those two fierce competitors met. The loser congratulated the winner. The winner praised the loser. They hugged. Total respect in both directions.
No, keep going a little bit longer.
All the players on each of the opposing teams were shaking hands and hugging at the end of that game. That was really the most important thing that happened on that court. And that's the way it used to be in American politics. Loser congratulates winner. Winner praises the loser's effort. Total respect in both directions. This happens routinely in America's physically roughest sports, basketball and football, and it is the most important.
So, can we hold a vision of that kind of world? Can we let that event be an icon of a world that we might imagine? Those competitors, like us, we're going to be fully in the game and we're going to hug each other at the end because we've both been fully in the game and we learn from our competitors. And can we imagine that kind of world? And it doesn't have to be a majority either. Raise your hand if you know about that 100th monkey phenomenon. Well, for those of you who don't know, and this was decades ago, on this island in the Pacific, the monkeys would dig up these roots and eat the roots, dirt and all. And then one day, one monkey went to the water and washed off, I think it was a her, but I don't know. Washed off her root, and pretty soon another monkey started washing off the root. And then the whole island eventually was washing the root before they ate it. And then monkeys on islands nearby started. And then monkeys on islands across the world started washing their root before they ate it. And the scientists didn't believe this. The monkeys in the laboratories, science laboratories, started washing their roots. And the scientists tried to make up all kinds of reasons. Well, it's possible that a hair from the beard on the scientist that was at that first island, that he came to a laboratory and it fell off and spread the DNA. And so they did control research, and no. Because we're all influenced by the power in that fifth dimension, that particular power. They hooked up with that template. Nobel Prize winner in biology, Rupert Sheldrake, says, how does your dog know when you're coming home? Because dogs are sometimes connected. We're connected up there in that divine template. So it doesn't take a majority. It just takes the 100th monkey. And here's another thing trees do. When a giraffe bites their bark or a bug nibbles their leaves, it hurts them. And do you know what they do? They pump substances into their leaves that the biting animal doesn't like. And they emit a warning gas to tell all the other trees to pump that same substance into their leaves. So I played with this. I wonder if somebody tries to threaten us, we could do some version of, you don't want to eat me. You wouldn't like eating me. I'm not going to taste too good to you. And we can also sound the alarm to others when something painful and hurtful is happening to any member of our community. And then in Unity's fifth principle, after we spend time in prayer and meditation and connecting with the divine, that fifth principle, we take right action. Grounded in the divine, now we go back to the third dimension as an expression of that greater power. We stand up for truth. We speak the truth, not with venom, not with hatred. I think anger's okay. Anger's a natural human emotion, but without any of the us, them, you're bad, we're good. To speak the truth. In the same vein, as we're called to take action, however we're called, writing our congressperson, being part of a protest, donating some money, whatever we're called to do, it's important to take action instead of feeling powerless and hopeless. And let's remember joy. One of my favorite Unity quotes is from Eric Butterworth, who said that God's greatest gift and pleasure is that when from our human part we either ask for or affirm joy. It's just hard to mess with joyful people, don't you think? Okay, in the book, The Art of Racing in the Rain, and the movie, it's the story told by a dog of his lifelong relationship with his owner, who happens to be a race car driver. And he talks about all the lessons that the race car gives him. And embedded in these lessons about racing, car racing, are great existential pieces of advice. So the dog remembers when the race car said, you know, when I'm driving in pouring rain and I hit a puddle and the car starts to spin and comes out of that spin and is headed toward the wall, what I have to do is keep my eyes on the road ahead, because the car's going to go where our eyes are going to go. So can we hold the vision? Instead of focusing on the wall of despair and hopelessness, focus on the road of joy, focus on the road of the kind of world we can create in love. So in summary, be part of a community, avoid isolating, Take care of one another. Receive help graciously. Sound the warning when there's danger afoot. Speak for truth. All of that. And I want you to think of one little thing or big thing that you might do as you leave this week. And are we going to stand for a new world? Let's stand for peace and love and joy. And so it is.
Hi, it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.